Dwight, why should people listen to this episode of Pod Friends featuring you, the one and only Dwight Moore Jr.?
You should listen to the episode. One, because I talk about my interviewing career. I talk about all the people I've interviewed, how I reached out to them, how that process worked, how I was able to get some of these opportunities. Talk about some things I didn't mention on the show. I talked about some spelling bees I was in, some that were, televised nationally. Talk about my parents, their influence on my life, how they were able to shape a lot of what I've been able to do. And also just talk about how a lot of my life I was able to take some risks, take some chances, and how sometimes those failed, sometimes those succeeded, but all those shaped who I am today. And I think this is a very good episode to talk about those. And also, you get to live my pretty face. Just kidding. No, turn it off. But my self-deprecating humor is great. I love myself. It's amazing. Anyways, I'm also rambling this whole time. So if you want to listen to someone just talk like 50 words per minute, do that too. It's great. Trying to understand what I'm saying is a disaster. Anyways, really hope you enjoyed the episode.
Look, I love it. I just have to say, look, this is, hopefully everyone listens on 1x speed. Hopefully everyone watches on
2x,
YouTube.
cowards.
This beautiful face. Oh!
2x. You won't hear a word I'm saying. It's impossible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod Friends. I'm your host, Matt Scott, and you could follow me on social media at MattScottGW, on X, aka Twitter, at HeyPodFriends. And I'm just so thrilled to be here. I'm going to give you a time code to skip ahead, but I'm going to let you know that if you want to skip ahead to the interview with the one, the only Dwight Moore Jr., you could do that. It was a phenomenal conversation. I am still reeling from it. But also want to say that in this intro, well, there's a lot of appreciation, a lot of gratitude, but also a lot of voicemails from you, the listeners. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your voicemails. And I have a handful of them that I am so excited to share. So if you want to skip ahead to the interview with Dwight, well, all you need to do is skip ahead almost exactly 15 minutes. All right, everyone, it is time for something that is just so incredibly special for me, and I hope for all of you, and it is hearing from you, the pod friends. I know I started out this season talking about how it felt like while I was in my pod friends off season for the better part of a year, about 9 months or so, that I felt like I was experiencing pod friends just by having conversations with all of you at the different live shows that are happening. And I just want to insert a very quick plug for May 8th in Chicago when RHAP is doing a live show. Go to robhaswebsite.com for more information. Go to patreon.com/RHAP for more information if you are a patron or want to become a patron and support and be part of this community so that you don't miss out on live show tickets, especially going in the future. But this is the part where I listen to some of your voicemails. And thank you all for just generally and generously submitting voicemails to me about pod friends, about some of the episodes. I haven't listened to any of them. So what I'm going to do is just click on a voicemail that I have in front of me. I think I'll listen to about 5 of them and react in real time. So let's do this. First and foremost, let's hear from the one, the only Mark Levy, who submitted a voicemail in the past and who has submitted yet another one now. So let's hear from Mark.
Hey, Pod Friends. This is Mark, one of the biggest fans there is for Pod Friends. And I really, really love this season. I love the show so much. One of my favorite things about the show is it brings a whole nother world of what people are like outside of Survivor into our ears, and it's really great. It makes me feel very happy whenever a new episode drops. This season's been incredible, so thank you, Matt. Thank you, guests. I can't wait to see what comes next. I will always be the number one Pod Friends fan. At least I say I am. So that means I have to be. No one else is claiming it on Twitter. That's all I know. Matt, congrats on our great season.
So, Mark, I just want to shout you out and thank you so much for being, in your own words, or I should say, the self-proclaimed biggest Pod Friends fan. If anyone wants to contest that, let me know on Twitter at MattScottGW, at Hey Pod Friends. Mark, it means the world to me, and thank you for your support and all the words that you just always have to share in support of whatever I'm up to and whatever I'm doing. And next, to stick with another M name, let's hear from Mike.
The conversation with Jessica Leese was amazing. As someone who was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult, hearing about her journey just moved me very much. When she talked about rejection-sensitive dysphoria, I had never heard of that before, and it explained so much in my life. I honestly thought I would have to pull over my car and start crying.
Wow.
I started looking for so many more of the unknown symptoms of ADHD, and it explained so much. So thank you for what you do, and the guests for their willingness to be so open.
Wow, Mike. You're getting me choked up a little bit. I wasn't expecting any of this. I haven't listened to any of these, but just want to send you so much love, because for me, that's what Pod Friends is about. That's why Pod Friends matters. Like, if one person finds something that really resonates or helps them see themselves or understand themselves better or just feel like better about themselves, that's what matters so much to me. And I love Jessica Leese. I know that hopefully sometime in the near future, hopefully I'm not dropping any news I'm not supposed to, Jess will release a book that I am just thrilled to buy and read and support, whatever that looks like. And, I know she's way into the process, so who knows when that will come out. But all to say that Jess shared something that didn't at the time connect with me in terms of ADHD and her experiences, but that since then I've been so thankful listening to like Jen Kirkman's podcast and just others that are talking about ADHD. And it also points to how podcasting can be this great place for us to learn about things that really impact our lives. And I'm just so thankful for you, Mike, for sharing and letting me know about how that specific piece of the conversation with Jess resonated, because like that's why I do what I do as an interviewer, and that's why I am so thankful to be not only be able to put out Pod Friends, but to be your Pod Friend, Mike. So sending you so much love and excited to hear from you more in the future. Woo! Oh my gosh. Next up, let's hear from David.
Hello, Matt. Thanks for your podcast with Franny, which I've just listened to. It's David here. I'm in Melbourne, Australia. Thought I'd just drop in to say thanks. I think you're a good listener, which makes you a good communicator. I really enjoyed Franny and your session. Franny is curious and open, and I must say it's that curiosity and openness and learning is a lifelong project. I'm 65 and I've watched every Survivor season, and I really am curious and enjoy listening to younger people, just to hear different perspectives on how folks are dealing with what they're dealing with. I must say I did really enjoy Matt and Franny in season 44. Thought they were gorgeous and both seemingly really kind and loving and authentic and just seem so perfect for each other too. So, yeah, thanks again, Matt. I think your session was great. My name's David Mallard. I have a website, davidmallard.com. You can look me up there. But thanks again. Great work.
Oh my gosh, David, thank you so much all the way from Melbourne. And it means the world to me to hear from you. Right now, I'm going to davidmallard.com. I always appreciate a good plug. We do so many plugs as podcasters, but why not have pod friends plug what they're doing? David Mallard, personal guide and advisor, people development, emotional intelligence and communication, wild mind mentor, and student business ethics. The list goes on and on. Free plugs here. That was not even an ad. Thank you so much, David, though, for everything you share. I love Matt and Franny too. I adore them. I adore my conversation with Franny, as I've joked about with Franny at some of these live events, and with Matt at some of these live events. Like, I don't know who's the better Matt. Is it me? Is it Matt Blankenship? Who knows? But just so thankful to be in community with them and in community with you, and listening. You talk so much about that, but that's what Pod Friends is really about. And I'm thankful that you could be one of our listeners. A couple more voicemails I'll play. This next one is from James. Let's go.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is James Hayden. I've been a day one listener of Pod Friends. It's one of my favorite series on RHAP. Every episode that I listen to, I take something away from that I can think about and reflect upon. I believe that the episode with Mike Bloom is one of the best things that RHAP has ever produced, and I'm looking forward to more seasons.
James, thank you so much. And just so much love to you. I think that Mark Levy has some competition with you, James, in terms of who is the number one Pod Friends listener. Again, if you are a Pod Friends listener and you think you're the number one fan of Pod Friends, submit a voicemail, speakpipe.com/podfriends. It means the world to me. Even just to hear that this has value for you at all means the world to me, because like I do this because of this community. I do this because of what this community has meant to me. I do this because of all of you. So, James, just want to send you so much love and massive hugs, and hope that we get to be in touch again soon. But I always appreciate hearing from you after the different episodes, and just knowing that there are people listening and supporting and resonating and loving this. And the conversation with Mike Bloom, I could go on, but one thing I'll say, whether it's the conversation with Mike or the conversation with Jessica Leese or Stephen Fishback or Taryn Armstrong or Mari Forth or Brooklyn Zed or Beth Dixon or Kirsten McInnes and Sasha Joseph, and like, I can name anybody who has been on Pod Friends, but I can't encourage you enough to go back and just find an interview that's resonated, listen to it, hear from the person. But that one with Mike is really, I think it's the longest one by far, at about 2.5 hours, but it's also really stands out and is a really special experience. So thank you so much for that. And we'll do one more voicemail from the one and only Ryan Cassidy. Let's go. Let's see what we're up for.
The Matthew Scott. What is going on, amigo? This is your friend and not so secret admirer, Mr. Ryan Cassidy, coming to you from the city of brotherly love in Philadelphia. You have been absolutely crushing it in these Pod Friends episodes, so I want to give you a quick shout out. But my voicemail today, and for you and for the next guest, is what are some quotes, some words of wisdom that allow you to like look yourself in the mirror and forge forward and motivate you to keep on going. I'll share a couple of mine. Like, one of my favorites was said by, the horseman himself, none other than Teddy Roosevelt, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I think that you embody that. A lot of Survivor players embody that, and a lot of RHAP, both podcasters and fans do as well. And then the second one was said by none other than Carl Weathers, RIP, in Rocky III. there is no tomorrow. He says that to young Rocco before going up against Mr. T. There is no tomorrow. So you got to do today. You got to get your ass up, go do some cool shit, and get yourself one step closer to your goals. So we'd love to hear from you, Mr. Scott, and from your guests. Some words of wisdom. What keeps you pushing forward? Love the pod. Keep crushing it. All love. Peace.
All love, and I love you, Ryan Cassidy. Thank you so much for being my not-so-secret admirer. Thank you so much for just the wisdom that you had to share. That's what's about. There's wisdom from all of the directions, not just from the podcasters to the folks listening, but in all directions. And Ryan, you are one of a kind. Shout out to you. I love the quotes that you shared. I love the question that you put out there. And, one thing that's so great about the conversation that's coming up with Dwight is that we do talk about learnings and wisdom and both being interviewers, which I know you didn't know that Dwight was going to be on this episode, but we do get into some of the learnings and things along both of our journeys. But if there's one quote or saying that comes to my mind right now, it is just this phrase: to take lemons and make lemonade. And for me, taking lemons and making lemonade is about recognizing that life isn't perfect, that there are so many challenges or struggles or barriers, or can I say bullshit on this? Bullshit that comes up. And you know what? Like, we kind of have to roll with it. How could you make the best out of a horrible situation? How could you not give up on yourself and keep fighting, keep persisting, be fearless, as Dwight will talk about in this interview that's coming up? How could you do all of that and still push through and still survive, still thrive, still be, all that you can be? Not to pull from the, I didn't even realize I was pulling a military slogan in. Anyway, we're going to keep rolling. Thank you all for those voicemails. Again, if you are someone who wants to leave a voicemail, potentially for me to listen to for a future Podfriends episode, speakpipe.com/podfriends is the place to do it. It really warms my heart and means the world. And that is truly what keeps me going. Which, as a side note, I would love to hear from you all with this being the season finale. Do you want more Podfriends? Do you want to keep hearing from me and these conversations with folks? Let me know however you could let me know. It could be a DM, it could be a tweet, it could be an Instagram tag, it could be a carrier pigeon. Hopefully it gets to me. It could be a voicemail. It could be anything. Let me know, because that's what'll really keep me going and hopefully bring back Podfriends sooner rather than later. But you're why I do this. So thank you so much. And thanks for indulging me with this long ass intro. But let's get into it. I am so thrilled, so excited, so honored to introduce this week's guest. Making his way to the podcast, hailing from Memphis, Tennessee, by way of New York City. He is a software engineer working with Google. He is someone who you know from Survivor, an epic interviewer who has talked with Colin Powell, with Madeleine Albright, with Cory Booker, with Usher, with Condoleeza Rice, with so many more people. And he is only 23 years of age. He is someone who has dreamt of visiting all 7 continents, of interviewing all of the living presidents, who's had his own business card as a child, interviewing icons who are changing the world and bringing his interviewing expertise, his personality, his story to Podfriends. Please welcome the ambitious, the confident, the strong-willed Dwight Moore Jr. Sometimes with Podfriends and these interviews, I am like, oh my gosh, let me prepare like super type A about it. I get all of my notes in place. I get like all of the factoids about the person. Like, I'll have clips, video clips of them from decades ago. I don't know.
What did you think about me? Oh God!
I was gonna say I did see one. I did think about like, okay, should we just like play this and like react to it? But there was like a video interview of you from a
oh God!
It was like, it's like Dwight Moore is trying to meet Michelle Obama. And that was like
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole gist of it. So yeah,
Remember
casual.
that.
There we go. But yeah, no, I'm happy to have you on, and excited to have you on as the season finale, because there's so much that's like meta about Pod Friends. But one of the things for sure is like the fact that I talk about the process of podcasting and everything else that goes into it. And so I don't know, I feel like you're a good person to talk with as someone who's interviewed many incredible people we'll talk through. And yeah, I have no clue where this conversation is going, but I
I'm
know
so
where
glad you invited me.
I
I'm so
know.
happy. Yeah.
Like, what does it feel like? I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be on the other end of being interviewed. Are you used to being interviewed at this point?
At this point, yeah, but when like the Survivor process first started, and like I've been interviewed before and like locally in Memphis for various things, but that was like, you know, small scale local interviewers. I kind of like I knew the people I was going to be interviewing with. There's like small, like the local news channels. I knew some of those people.
Okay.
But then, you know, Survivor, it's a lot different. It's like, oh, this is national. Oh God, oh, this is like Robert's podcast, and a lot of people watch this. It's like, okay, so I gotta get used to this now. I gotta, you know, and also like when I was doing it when I was younger, I was more of a kid, like elementary school, middle school, sometimes high school, but it was like, you know, it's like chill. If I say something stupid, it's like he's still a kid. Now I'm just like, oh, I'm an adult. I got to be not professional, but you know, it's like a lot more eyes on what I'm saying, being more careful what I'm saying. I'm more aware as well. I was also like, I have a lot of things to talk about. I don't want to like misconstrue anything when I'm speaking. Like now I'm trying to remember all the interviews I did in the past and like how I did the process. And, you know, even though like it was years back, I still remember a lot of it, but I also want to make sure I'm telling the like remembering it correctly, not just like, you know, the 10, 15 years of memory, just like, did I remember that correctly? You know? So yeah. But I do enjoy being interviewed a lot now. And also, like, as you said, also it's less prep when you're being interviewed because it's just like beforehand I prepare so much for any interview with anyone, and it's just like, oh, now it's just stress free. I just got to answer questions. It's great.
Well, I want to add, that's how I feel too. Actually, I was interviewed on this podcast related to my work earlier, and I was just like, oh, okay, I know the topics we're talking about. Okay, no prep. It was like easy, casual, fun, making jokes, all the things. So I'm glad that you are in the casual, fun, chill spot with this.
I mean,
and
I probably will
also
ask you a few questions too.
I'll
turn this back on you at some point.
Oh my God, no, please do it.
Do away Pod Friends episode.
No, that's honestly though, I will say, if you have questions for me, like please throw them at me. Like I sometimes like don't even mention that before we hit record, but the few times that I have, like Stephen Fishback of all people was like asking me so many questions on here, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. But I think that's the cool thing. Like this is whatever we want it to be. And but I want to ask you a question that I ask like so many people, not even the Pod Friends context, but that I ask so many people in the interviews that I do for work. And so just as context, like literally 4 days ago, I live in Washington, D.C., but I was in San Francisco interviewing like 7 change makers doing climate work. And it was like awesome just to highlight their stories. These are like an hour and a half, 45-minute interviews in some cases. But the question that I always start with that I'm going to ask you is, Dwight, who are you?
Oh God, that's the question that was always so open-ended. It's like, oh God, what do I say? What do I say to this?
I love it.
Who am I? Oh God, I gotta dig deep to my soul for this one.
Do it.
I don't even know
that's
who I am.
That's the whole point. That's what Pod Friends is.
Honestly,
digging deep. Jeff Probst.
My entire life has kind of been surrounded on, if I want to go do something, just put 110% into doing it until it gets done. And that's kind of driven what I've been able to accomplish in my life so far. And like, so for example, when I started my whole interviewing career, that started when I was 5 years old. President Carter was at an event in Memphis. So he was visiting one of the libraries there, just doing like a book signing or whatever. And me, 5-year-old kid, I was really like, keep in mind, this is pre-Obama, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to be a president one day, and there's no one like me to look up to. But I was like, I still want to do that. There's no example. But I was also like infatuated by that. So I was like, okay, president's coming to town. I want to meet him. So it was a book signing event. And I got, like, it took a while to get to him. Got to him, asked him like a question or two as well. He was super nice, answered it. I forget what I asked. I was 5, keep in mind. But I was like, at the time, I was like, if I can just go out and like meet a president and ask him questions, why can't I just do this on a grander scale? Why can't I just, keep interviewing? And I mentioned that to my parents. And just like,
Wow.
okay, we'll support this. And it blossomed from there, that whole interviewing career that I have.
Yeah.
I wish I had the book of all the interviews I did here. It's at home. But I have a lot of photos on my phone. I can probably try and find some of those, the ones that Survivor didn't show because they showed Mitch McConnell. Anyways, yeah, I sent him like so many photos. He chose the one with McConnell, which
wow,
honestly, kind of funny in hindsight because like of all the people I've interviewed, that's like the antithesis of who I am. But also that one kind of came across. So the McConnell interview, I'm just gonna, you know what,
please
just detour the McConnell interview. How that happened. I was at the Fox News studio in DC before anyone freaks out. This is also pre-Trump and everything, so they weren't like super off the deep end.
But also like the local, but I'll also say like the local affiliate. So like, which is very different than like the new national news network.
Exactly. So guys, right? I promise you, I'm not like, anyways, I was there for an interview about me. And McConnell was in the green room also there. And I was like, why don't I have a senator. I'll just interview him here. So it was really just a spur of the moment thing. That was not planned. I had no intent to reach out to him for an interview.
Oh my gosh.
Let me be honest. But it just kind of happened that way.
And how old were you at that point?
Ooh, I want to say 11 or 12.
Okay.
But yeah, that was another thing about like, it's just like the fearlessness in a way, like what other kid's gonna walk to a center and just start approaching him with questions? Like that's just who I am as a person. I don't really, and this is weird to say within the being in the reality TV space, and like a lot of, how do I say this? Sometimes like if I meet someone, I don't really get afraid to go talk to them at this point. I might be like more so I don't want to be like, how do I say this? I don't want to come off the wrong way, especially like the Survivor fandom. Like there's some people who are like quote unquote legendary players. And as a fan, I'd be like, if I met them, I just want to go talk to them, And now that I'm a player, it's weirder for me. Cause like as a player, it's like, oh, I'm a former player now. So I don't really want to.
Wow.
Like, I'm not sure why it is, but it was more hesitation that I'm a player than what I was a fan. As a fan, I'll just, if I found one, like, so before I got cast, I was 18. I just applied for the first time. I was at an event at Stanford campus because Angelina from Musical Live was hosting her premiere party there.
Yes.
And I had just applied for the first time. I got a call back right after from the casting team. And I want to put this out there for people. That's not typical to get a call back. So when I applied when I was 18, I applied like at 2 a.m. on like a Monday night. I got a call back 7 a.m. the next day. Like they called me back like that. So
oh my
I was
gosh.
like, oh, they like me. I was like, oh shit, they really like me. I was freaking out. But that's not typical. Be clear about people. Don't be like, they didn't call me back the next day. A lot of people who get cast, it's like months later. I promise you my story.
Some people don't get, most people don't hear anything back at any point.
Yeah. So like genuinely, like I'm sorry. I just like a lot of people ask me like, what they didn't call me back. I promise you, not typical. Like it's just weird. But I went to this event with Angelina and I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to go up there and tell her I just applied and casting called me and see what happens. She's the nicest person ever. Like, I swear to God. I walk up to Angelina. She's like, she basically says to me, like, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm here for I'm doing my event right now. I don't really have time, but here's my email. Here's my personal email. Send me your video. I will review it for you. And hopefully you'll get on like in the future. 3 years later, I get on the show. So I emailed her, sent her video. She gave me a few tips on that. Adam Klein was also there. Met him, talked to him for a bit. I didn't do the whole I would apply thing because I met Adam during the episode. I didn't see him before, and I was like, "Hi, Adam, big fan." Just talking for a little bit, but I didn't tell him the whole casting thing. But yeah, no, like I said, she was super, super nice, super helpful with the casting tips. But yeah, I haven't really met so many quote unquote legend. Actually, I take that back. I used to be nervous, but not anymore because I met a few at the events. Sandra, talked to her for a good bit. I just met her, just walked through I know her for a while. She's so chill, down to earth. But I guess I got into my head when I came off from playing about I don't really want to reach out to the older. It feels kind of weird in a way. I'm not sure what stopped me. I still to this day can't understand why I did that. But it took me a bit to be what am I trying to gain from talking to an older player? Is it I'm not here for clout or anything. I play Survivor because I like Survivor, and I feel like a lot of times people are reaching out to these former legendary players only just for a clout purpose, and that's just not who I am. I'm just I want to get to know people who are interesting, and I want to reach out to people who are interesting and I don't know. Now it's more so I'm not focused on the want to get to know everybody. I just want to get to know people who are interesting and people I think are really would relate to me very well and people I can hang around with. And
Yeah.
it's I don't know. It's strange to say. It's hard to verbalize. It's really hard to verbalize how I feel about reaching out to people sometimes. But I keep going on detours when I talk. By the way,
I'm good at keeping track because I am all for the detours. I'm all for like the segues and tangents, and then I'm like, okay, we'll get back to the point. But I feel like you have to, and this is the beauty of like the long form podcast interviews and everything. It's like I love for people to go on the tangent because like that's where your mind's pulling you in the moment, and then I can pull you back.
Definitely right.
So I'm like, okay, wait, here's what I want to come back to. Here's what I want to come back to. Like, I have multiple things, but keep going.
It's when I talk, like, I realize, like, the Survivor producer would have been like, what is this kid talking about? And then my confessionals, like, what is he saying? He's just talking forever. I swear to God, like, these editors, I am sorry, whatever you got to cut out from me just rambling for hours. Jesus.
Hey.
But, I guess just the whole, like, fearlessness thing or just, like, being a bold child. The story I remember always telling casting, and this is one I think kind of got my foot in the door, was my interview with Colin Powell. So what happened, I want to say 9 or 10 years old. Colin Powell was at a speaking event in DC. I emailed him for an interview and I got turned down. He said no. So me being the kid that I am, was like, I'm going to the event anyways. You're not stopping me. So I went. He got done speaking at the event. He was walking. I'm going to try and pull up the photo while I tell you the story. So he was walking, leaving the event. And he was like kind of, on his way, just leaving. And I quite literally walk up to him, basically ambush him with like, can I do my interview with you? Like he had already said no on email. I walked to him and said, I can't do my interview with you. And he says no again. I don't care. I start asking my first question anyways. And he heard my question and was like, I guess he didn't expect something from a 9 to 10-year-old to have like, more than 5 words in it. And he kind of turned around and let me continue my interview because he was impressed by what I said. Like, he was impressed by the question I asked him, and I was actually, had structure to it, had a purpose. It wasn't just oh my God, nice to meet you. Who are you? Like my interviews when I was younger and still are, a lot of the focus was one, what in your back, what in your upbringing allowed you to get the position that you are in today? What is it that drove you? And thing I always ask, like you asked the who are you question. The question I would always ask is, what advice would you give for the younger generation like me about like, the world now? Yeah, like what is something you think the younger generation needs to know? What's something you need to be informed about, or what's something you think the younger generation should do? And I got a lot of good answers to that question. I have a lot of my interviews actually recorded, and I should probably publish them one day. Like these are my mom.
This is the $1 million question, Dwight. It's like, where are the tapes? Where's the vault? Unlock them. Unleash them.
That's something I kind of regret. Actually, from like years ago. Like we have a lot of these interviews on recording in my house with like famous figures, and it's just they're sitting in my house somewhere on a tape. And it's wild to say out loud, but I just have a lot of those just sitting home, and we're just like, should we publish those somewhere? Like, is there a need? It's been like 10 plus years at this point, but it still might be interesting to do, especially now that I have like the Survivor platform. I guess it would get more people would see it. So I've thought about that, and I've looked into doing that at some point. But I would need to watch them back, see if it's like topical, if it's useful. But that's something I definitely thought about.
Unleash the tapes. This is what I'm saying. I feel like, okay, I'm glad that you brought this up, because I think that in the fact that they exist, this is useful for people for many reasons. But one, just from the fact that like you did have that fearlessness, or you did just have the gall of going out and doing it. And so often people think that they can't do things. Like one thing I always say, especially to myself, and sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't, but it's like, don't be the one who says, who gives yourself the no. Like you've said it yourself. Like let someone else tell you no. The worst they could say is no. But exactly. I just think even people, like I could picture you having a podcast now where you're like, okay, I'm going to go through and each episode will be one interview. And then with the beauty of that is like, each episode is like Madeleine Albright, right? Or like whatever the title is. And then you just listen to it and reflect on it. And I say this because like I personally like started interviewing people in 2017, which side note, let's make space for the tangent. I think it's wild that you're 23?
23 now, yes.
This is wild to me because I am 31. So I like in my head, like you had to be like, I remember the story of everything on Survivor as they first presented it. And it's like Dwight's young and an interviewer, but I mostly just remember the interview part. But then when I was like, wait, crap, he's 23. Like how did you fit in this entire life and career that is literally like comparable to people who are literally still 5 times your age? But I think what's so amazing is even just taking the time to go through and listen and be like, oh, I would ask that question differently now, or oh, I'm really impressed with how I asked that layered question at 5 years old or 7 years old or 11 years old or whatever it might be. So I'm just saying you can't just talk about the possibility on RHAP or Pod Friends. Like you need to actually do it at some point.
Yeah, I need to find the tapes first. There's somewhere in my house and like a box in my parents' basement. We'll find them somewhere.
You probably have to find like a converter, I'd imagine, of like taking it from like tape to now. I don't even know.
Given how much stuff my mom keeps in our basement, I gotta find the damn thing because Lord knows we've not cleaned that out in years. Anyways, my mom was watching me saying that part.
No, I'll say, let me throw my mom under the bus too. I'll throw my mom under the bus because she would do the same thing. I think, I think like as much as I make fun of my mom, me and my siblings make fun of my mom for that. Like, one day you'll look back and appreciate all of the random stuff from, 2000 or whatever she has just lying around.
She sent me videos of so I interviewed I put it on Twitter a few days ago, but I interviewed Usher at the National Civil Rights Freedom Awards years ago. And I kind of vaguely remember, but she found the photo and sent me the photo and interview. Like she sent it to me last week. I was like, oh, I'll watch the interview back at some point too. It was like granted, he was it was like I was a red carpet event. It was a late interview. I do remember he was late to the event, by the way. Like he was just late as hell. I think I was like one of the only interviewers left at the red carpet area. Everyone else had went inside. I was still out there. So that's why I got my interview with him. I don't think anyone else did. So
wow.
But he was just late. He just showed up late. I was like, okay.
And you were just hanging out. Well, good. He was fashionably late. Good for Usher.
He was just late. He was late.
Oh wow. Not the fashionable.
Not fashionably. People were gone inside. He's like, oh, I'm here, guys.
I know. This is where I'm like, let me pull up the photo. Let me judge. I mean, okay, he had this little. There's fashion. There's fashion to it.
There was fashion.
But it is funny that you mentioned that he showed up late because when I look at the photo, and maybe I'll like edit it into this somehow, but there's literally like no one else on the red carpet. It literally looks like the lights, like they're shining the lights off. He's there. He seems very calm too, for the fact that I guess nobody was really around. Wow. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Nice bow tie,
no one was
Usher
there.
Raymond.
Almost.
There we go.
Yeah. Everyone's already left the red carpet. It was just, I think that hand in the photo is, I think that's my mom's or some.
Oh, no, yeah. I was wondering.
No, that's not my mom's because I was taking the photo. It was, I remember who it was because it's another one of the local interviewers in Memphis. I forget her name, but it was someone I was talking to when he walked in.
Okay.
Like, I've known her for a while, but we were just talking and Usher was just like, "What's up?" I was like, "Oh shit," like, okay. Thanks for being here. I thought you weren't gonna be here. No, actually, I want to right back. You're talking about how you started interviewing. Like, how did that start for you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I thank you for asking. So I always feel like I was interested in people's stories. Like that was always something for me that was really compelling and just resonated. Like I know that you are like you're a software engineer in your work and all that. For me, STEM topics were never it. Like I love to drag myself and talk about how badly I did in science classes, math classes, other things. But like for me, people's stories and people were always just something that was so easy and resonated, but also was so interesting. And I studied business and marketing in college. and, graduated doing marketing. I started doing digital marketing or social media marketing like right after college. But, the part that I loved the most was like asking people to film a short, like 1 minute video clip and send it in and share their perspective on like some prompt or topic. So then I was like, ooh, let me dive deeper. Like, 1 minute is fine, but I want to like learn these people's stories. But the thing that actually like pushed me into interviewing and to story I love to share, and I'm so glad to share with you, is my dad and his story. Because my dad grew up in the civil rights era, as he was in high school in the 1950s in Prince Edward County, Virginia, which was one of the places where like Black students and white students went to school separately. And, even when the Supreme Court ruled that they had to integrate the schools, Prince Edward County, Virginia was like the one place in 1959 where they were like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're going to close the schools. So they closed the they closed the public schools in Prince Edward County, Virginia for 5 whole years. All public schools
5 years?
were closed.
I didn't know this.
5 years. This is why I tell the story, because so many people don't know it. That's the point. And it's like my dad he was out of school for 1 year, working, enjoying it. He moved away to finish school. But like, this is a time when if you are a young black man who goes to live with white strangers, like that's not necessarily the best situation. But that's what my dad did. That's what my dad did to finish high school. So he finished high school, graduated from Harvard University, served as a captain in the military, graduated from Harvard Business School, which is like unheard of even at that time for a black man.
Yeah.
For a lot of, there were very few of them at the time.
Okay,
and
was he the first one? I was getting
no, he was not the first one, but there were very few. I've heard some stories since. And like the thing that motivated me to tell a story was not only that it was so powerful in the face of so much like challenge growing up. You could only imagine, like, as a black man and that as a black boy, the things he was just told in general, which were just horrible. But the thing is, in 2017, 7 years ago, my dad passed away. And that was when I was like, crap, people who have these really powerful, meaningful stories often don't get to tell their stories. And so for me, that was the thing that really triggered me going and doing like full on interviews with people, mainly with change makers, but then I guess, RHAP community, we're change makers. Everyone's a change maker in their own right. But like, that's the thing that propelled me to go interview people. Cause I said like, wow, there are all these stories that people don't even get to share, are never asked to share. Like, so many people are never asked the question, who are you? I love your response to that, because it shows me like, come on, Dwight's not getting asked this every day. Come on. But more people should be asked that. So like, that's my thing. And I share it all the time through the work I do. It's just like how much my dad motivates my journey, which is cool. And I'm sure like all of us have these different stories of what motivates us. But yes, that's my journey. That's what motivates me. But I don't know. I'm curious how that resonates with you, and also like your motivation into all of this.
My main motivation has always been kind of reflecting back on what I said earlier with, when I was a kid, like I was like, okay, I want to be the president one day. Like, great goal. But then I don't have anyone to really look up to as a black man. Like there's nothing like that for me. So in several ways, it's one, no one really, like, younger people, like, we don't really reach out to them. So I was like, okay, if I can just, go out there, put myself out there, do these interviews, one, maybe I'm inspiring someone else to just go out there and just reach out, do something, take that step, take that risk, because who else is going to go out there and do that kind of stuff, So one, maybe be an example in my own right for someone else who may be scared to take that step. Two, getting these people's stories. And now, while I did like never publish their interviews, I did write in the local paper for some of them. So I would, still get the stories out somehow. I think my mom still has some of those newspaper articles in our house somewhere, but I would still write the stories about who I interviewed, what I was interviewing for. Oftentimes for people, like oftentimes political figures, sometimes around events. I remember when they had the Gulf Coast oil spill down in Alabama, I went down to interview people for that. Because I felt like, that was important to know about like what's going on there. So that was one of the times I was like non-political. But getting those people's stories and hearing what are people who have, quote unquote, succeeded or have power, what is their advice for your generation? Because oftentimes when they have that power, they're not exactly doing interviews about what what information do I have to give back to people? Like, what did I
Exactly.
do to get here? And
Mhm.
sometimes people just don't even bother asking them. So I feel like getting that question being able to ask that question and learn from them what they were able to do, what was able to drive them, what was able to motivate them, what steps did they take to get to where they are, was very important. So I just wanted to do that. And I still, like I said, some of those are documented, but I didn't realize the reach that I would have when I started out. To be honest, at first it was a local thing.
Yeah.
Then eventually, it was Chris Wallace at Fox News, the like national anchor, who is the one that invited me to DC to do the interview there. So I was like, oh, national, okay, interesting. That was like sugar me surprise. Like, how did this happen? So yeah, and then I did interviews up until like ninth grade in high school. I just got busy with school, like way too busy. Like like it's easier in elementary, middle school. I was that kid in school who was like doing well on like academically, so it's just like I have free time. So I did all the interviews and stuff. But high school, like still did very well in high school. It's like like still had free time, but it's like I need to focus a lot more on like extracurriculars in high school for college. So like in hindsight, I could have traded out some extracurriculars for doing an interview career. Maybe that's something I've thought about before. Maybe I should continue it. I almost continued it during college as well. Someone I was going to interview, but then I never reached out. AOC was someone I feel like was very intriguing.
Oh, wow.
I just never got to the point of actually committing and reaching out to do that. And I still might do that sometime. Like I'm in New York now, to be honest. I still may do that someday, like revive the interviewing career. But I just have to find the time for it, But the original question, why did I get into the interviewing career?
Well,
Like
I think like a little bit more. Something that I'm curious about, even back to the original question, is because I do think it's okay. Let me put this into perspective. I have a 5-year-old nephew who does not want to be president of the United States. And I don't even know, he's, as far as I know, he's not even thinking about that. But, it would be really interesting. And I've thought this before. I really should do it. It'd be interesting for me to sit down and interview him if he would entertain me and do it. He'd probably honestly just roll his eyes and be like, oh gosh, Uncle Matt, please. And then just walk away or ignore me completely. I love him. He's amazing. He's like a teenager at 5 years old. It's amazing. But it's interesting because I guess I wonder what it is that planted the seeds for you to even have that ambition at 5 years old, and what that typically leads to is your parents and how that inspired you, what environment they created. But I would just love to know more about I'd love to know more, no pun intended, about the Moore family and legacy and how that raised you up. Because I remember just going back to some of your Survivor preseason stuff that you did talk about your parents and how they inspired you and were heroes for you, right?
Yeah, no, they are the only reason I've been able to do anything. Like the interviewing career, going to college, like Stanford, everything. Like they're the reason behind everything. So my parents, my parents had me a bit later in life. When I was born, my mom was 40, my dad was 50.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Side note: my mom was 45. My dad was also 50. That's interesting.
Okay. So yeah, it's very atypical. At least
Yeah.
a lot of my friends, my parents are 30 when they had me. I was like, nope, 40 and 50.
Yeah.
So in that regard, I feel like, and maybe you can the same way. I feel like when I was younger, at least, I've always been told I acted more mature than people my age. I think because my parents were mature when they had me, and that maturity, their experience, reflected on me in ways like some of my friends' parents' life experience or lack of didn't reflect on them as well. So they've always raised me in that regard, to be respectful, etc. They had that experience from also I have 3 older sisters, so they already have some experience raising kids. So granted, they're about 15, 20 years older than me. So they said there's some time off, but before they had me. But yeah, so my dad grew up in let me see, he grew up in Columbus, Mississippi, and moved to Cumming, Tennessee. And like I said, he was born 1950. So keep that in mind. So in the South. So yeah.
Similar. Yeah.
Yeah. But so for him, I don't want to go into their whole, I don't want to mess up any of their life story. So I was I always forget the bits and pieces. But he ended up going to Howard for school. and then he ended
Oh,
up
wow.
he went to Howard.
Wait,
And
hold on. Not to interrupt you, but I have to. I know this is horrible interviewing, but if I didn't say it already, my dad also went to Howard. I guess probably like 5 years before your dad. But that is so wild.
Wait, you said your dad was also born 1950, or
No, my dad was born in
your dad was
1944, but so he was
got
a
you.
little
Okay,
older. But he
I
went
was
to
gonna say like
Howard.
interesting.
Weird coincidences. I wasn't
Small world, yeah.
expecting coming into this.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
After this interview, I'm actually gonna ask for your dad to see if my dad knew him at all.
No, totally, absolutely.
The odds of that.
Yeah,
it's so possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went to Howard, ended up coming back he came to Memphis, OBGYN doctor, started his own practice here. And yeah, my mom, born into a military family. So she was born in Japan, because her dad was stationed there at the time. They moved a few places. I know they lived in Minnesota for a brief period of time, but they ended up settling down in Detroit long term. And then I do remember my mom, when she was going to college, she came to Tennessee for college basically when she was like 18. Just like, okay, I'm leaving, going to college immediately. Bye. Just because like she had to. Like, keep in mind, both of them, being Black families in like the 1950s, 60s. It's not like some families have generational wealth, right? Some people like have a lot to fall back on. Give me a damn Black family that had that in like the 1940s, 50s. There are none. So it's like a lot of times they were like, it was coming not from much at all. And like my mom leaving home, going to college, 18 or whatever. My dad, like I said, my dad's dad also former military. My dad's mom was a teacher. My mom's dad, military. My mom's mom, I forgot what my grandmother on my mom's side did as a job. I'll ask. Long story short, it's not like not like they had a lot to fall back on if things went wrong for them. Like now they get people like, oh, I might try and become an influencer for a bit. If it doesn't work, I have like some money. We don't have that kind of. They don't have that fallback. So they didn't have that, and that's why a lot of their drive to work and be successful was depending on, we had no other option if we are not successful in what we do. We have to put 110% into that. And I mean, I have no problem saying it. Like my dad now, is a now retired doctor. My mom worked as a nurse, ICU. They met in the hospital. Long story about that. So it's like that. The story how they met is like adorable. But like for me, I recognize I have some privilege that they did not. I don't have the same, like, oh, if I fail, it's not like I have nothing, because I still have my parents to fall back. If I they had layoffs at my work a few weeks ago, but like if I was to lose my job, it's not like I'm homeless. I could go back and move my parents for a bit to find a job. That's a luxury they didn't have. But also recognizing those privileges, which is important in life. Having privileges is not like the most evil thing in the world. Like I recognize it. Also, it's like I have that like quote unquote privilege. Let's say it ain't privilege compared to a lot of people out there, but I recognize what I do have is still better than what some people do not. But it's recognizing that you have that and still working your ass off to get what you like have in life. So for me, it's like, yes, I went to Stanford. It's not because like I didn't, have to like buy my way into Stanford like some people did, this college admission scandalous shit. I didn't have to do anything. Sorry, but just bring that up. That happened years ago. I was like,
leave Lori Loughlin alone. She's
exactly.
She's a huge listener to this podcast, I'm sure.
Oh no. Well, anyways, hope she's not upset. But no, it's like to get into Stanford, it's not because of that. It's I worked my ass off in high school, and I was able to do very well on like my grades. I was testing, and then I was able to get to Stanford. When I got to Stanford, still work my ass off while I'm there. Paid like I didn't pay just myself through undergrad. I paid for grad school out of pocket myself. But undergrad, my parents helped with, of course. So as I said, I'm not. Some people are ashamed to talk about like their parents helping with college. I'm not, because that's their life. They worked a lot to be able to set me up when I'm able to go to college, and they were super helpful with college. But yeah, so their drive and what they've been able to do for me is what inspired me to continue to work hard in everything that I do, because I want to make sure that my kids, or the people coming after me, have it even better than I did. And that's what drives me all the time. It's like, what kind of person would I be if I was able to benefit from my parents' work in one generation, what they've been able to do for themselves and do for me? I was just let that go. And it's that kind of drive that keeps me to working everything I do 110%. And also, it's like they've told me about the stories that they've had, like working or in school, where they just kind of want to do something and they like put 110% into reaching out and doing it. Like my mom getting a scholarship for nursing school. She had put a lot of work into doing that. My dad, reaching out, founding his own practice. Like I said, that's a huge risk to just start your own practice as a Black man in at that time. And he's able to start that and able to make it successful. So for me, it's like, why not take those risks in my life? Like I said, once again, to be clear, it's not like I have like a massive cushion to fall back on if things fail, but I still have something that they did not have. Like they had no cushion. I have like, a minor cushion to fall back on. But for me, it's like, if they had nothing and took those risks, why would I be afraid to take risks too? Why would I be able to shoot my shot and go for like big things? Why would I not want to go for like these interviews with famous people? Why would I not want to shoot my shot at, one of the most elite universities, most restricted universities in the country? Like, why not shoot my shot at 1%? Why not try and do that? And that's kind of driven all the decisions I made in my life. Why not apply for Survivor? Like, why not do that? And and like when I wanted, like, how do I say this? When I have these like motivations and drives to go do something, like I maybe tunnel vision into doing them so much, but you have to have that kind of drive if you want to get something. If it's like a low chance, get that done. And that's kind of what's driven a lot of my work in my life. For even the job I have now, like I work at Google as a software engineer, and me getting that first internship was just honestly a shot in the dark. I had taken
not a shot in the dark, Dwight.
Hey, listen, I didn't play mine, so it's not doesn't trigger for me. I went home with mine in my pocket. The first internship I had at Google was after I took one CS class, and it's because I just friends was like, hey, you should apply for this internship. I'm like, why would I apply for this? I have no CS experience. I'm literally taking the intro to CS class at Stanford, and they said apply for the school internship. Like, what world am I going to get accepted? But I applied anyways, and I was preparing a lot for the interview beforehand. Like I was spending weeks like doing a lot of preparation, and I ended up getting the internship afterwards. It's not because I had like this foundation knowledge other people do, because like let's be real, a lot of people come into Stanford and schools like this with a lot of background CS high school. My school didn't have computer science as like a class, so I was just going on what I'd taken on those few weeks and all the stuff I'm learning online. But it's that extra effort I'm putting in that people are not, which is what allows me to get these opportunities. Like some people just kind of rest back on their laurels sometimes. That's not who I am. I want to continue to do more, learn more, get more information, get more knowledge. And that's kind of just what drives me in life and everything that I've done so far. So yeah, long-winded answer once again. But that's stem from talking about my parents and how they motivated me. Yeah, no. Like I said, I love them so much. Also, my parents some more. We can talk about this some more because they're great. So more stuff, I guess, about me. Another thing that I don't think was mentioned in the show, I think I mentioned briefly. So like the National Spelling Bee they do on ESPN all the time, like that
of
National
course.
Kids. So I was in that when I was in 8th grade. Like the National Spelling Bee or whatever. Yeah. So in my elementary, middle school, they did, they have like a local spelling bee stuff, and it goes like, so how do I describe this? My elementary, middle school, small school, central day school, it was like it was a school in a church. There was a common in the South. But
sure,
there's a whole the whole organization, and they do their whole spelling bee chain or whatever. I think it was called ACSI was the organization. But they had like a whole national spelling bee chain that they did, or like other competitions as well. So like ever since like 1st grade, I always did spelling bee, did well in them. 5th grade, qualified for the like regional one, so like all the southeastern states. I was like, okay, cool, that's fun. 6th grade, qualified again from my city to go to the regional. Cool. 7th grade, did it, won the regional one, and went to the national. I was like, oh wow, that's interesting. 8th grade, did it again, won the regional again. It's funny. Also, too, the second time when I went as an 8th grader, again. Well, thank you. But yeah, when I won the 7th grade B, and then I walk in the next year having won, I'm showing to 8th grade. People look at me just like, this guy again. I won again anyway. So, but yeah. Anyways, long story short, after I did those, and that was like it was still a national thing, but it was still like not compared to the ESPN's like the script that's going to be. But it was like if I can do this, why not just try out for the ESPN National B? So what happened after I did the regional like national ACSI B stuff, I looked up like how does the ESPN script national B qualification work, and how that works is they do only one spelling bee locally in like certain cities, Mets being one of them, and only the winner gets to go represent their state or whatever or region at the ESPN script one. So
Oh.
like a lot of the big schools in Memphis, like a lot of the big private schools, public schools, they always send 1 or 2 people to this like qualifier B. Our school had never sent anyone because like we're such a small school. Why send anyone? So my first and 5th grade teacher, Miss Bradshaw, love her to death. She looked it up for me.
Shout
It's
out.
like, oh, you like, yeah, love her. She's great. She's like, okay, I found this. You can enter this B, and we'll see how it goes. So like in all the years, all the time, my mom. This is what I was getting at with like parenting. My mom would stay up like for hours with me practicing the word. Like she would list them off for me, and like would go back and forth for like I do my homework, get that done, and then like from like 8 to 11 or like just hours at night, she would stay up with me and practice those words with me all the time, just to make sure I got it doing well. And even when I didn't want to do it, like sometimes I'd just be like, this is dumb. I don't want to do it anymore. You know me, like the temperamental child. You don't want to do that. But she'd be like, no, we're still doing this because like this is really important for me. But it's like I know you want this. You taught me how much you want this. So even though you're tired now, I want to still push you to do it. And that kind of motivation is like hearing literal words in my mind now. If I want, like, if I'm tired of saying something, like I still want to, I know that I want it at some point. So the tiredness I have now, think back to when you wanted it and keep pushing forwards. And that's like that drive you always need in your life. But another thing, I'm just like, why not take that shot of, I went to this, like, never, like, I was in 8th grade, so I only have one shot that's like spelling bee that's qualified for scripts. I go, it's like 100 or so people. All the big schools always do it. First time some of my schools going representing, I end up winning. So I was representing like the Memphis region at the ESPN script spelling bee. Granted, I got out like 4th round at the ESPN script bee because that's crazy. Some kids memorize the dictionary. I ain't that crazy. I just memorize the word list, and it's like I'm gonna learn some Latin roots, Greek roots, other language roots. Call it a day. Like I said before, I'm driven, but also I know my limits. I need a life outside of memorizing the dictionary, so that's not contradictory.
I mean, you're human. You're human, and like in any situation where there's only one winner, whether it's Survivor, whether it's the spelling bee, like there's only one winner. Like so, there has to be however many other people who lose.
Exactly. I won the Memphis B of all the big schools. I was like, did great. All right. Anyways, like I was still trying my hardest to like, make it far and win, but also like I'm realistic. I knew like some kids spend their like years memorizing the dictionary for this stuff. That's not me. I have a life balance. So I can't, like, I would love to win, but it's almost impossible with the effort. I was like, I want to balance my life as well. I don't want my life revolving around this. So it's like a acceptance kind of thing as well. But like I said, without my mom staying up all the time doing that with me, and like my dad driving me to every single one, like my dad would drive me to all these bees across like the regional ones and the national ones, like they would help me with everything. And ultimately my dad works all like before, so my dad OBGYN, so he like works super late a lot of the time up until I was like 11 or 12. He had to have open heart surgery because he was working such late hours and just like taking a strain on him. But like to be clear, without him working so hard all the time, I wouldn't have what I have now. And that's just like the both of them have put in so much into making sure that I have what I need in my life and making sure that I have like good foundation set up morally, work ethic wise. Like they have done so much for me that I cannot state in like an hours long interview. Like they are my drive for everything. And like I wish I could talk about them more on Survivor because they drove me to do everything that I've ever done in my life. Genuinely, they did like I thank Survivor for that. They did give like my time talking to my parents on the show. So like I cannot repay them for that ever because like I said that they like I think I talked about them more in casting than myself. Genuinely, like I think they'd be like, who is this kid? Like where are his parents? Get him now. Get his parents on the show because like I talked about them so much in casting. But no, they drive me to do everything. And they're the best. They're the best.
Wow. I love this so much. I love this conversation because there's so many pieces, and I just love your passion for like talking about your story and how many details you get to and all that you get in. And I know famously you are a fast talker, so like you manage to make the most of I love it. Because you manage to make the most of every minute. You're like, let me tell you, because there's so much that resonates with me with just everything you share. Because it's so wild how having a conversation, spending like time with people you just have so many things that come up. Like we established like commonalities with having older parents. Dads who grew up in the South was another commonality. I'll say my mom was born in Trinidad, so let's put in another commonality of moms who were not born in the U.S. but came to the U.S. I also will mention, like, my dad ultimately, when I was 11 or 12, so oddly, it jumped out to me when you said your dad was 11 or 12 when that happened. Health wise, my dad did not have a health situation when I was 11 or 12 like that, but he was working like all the time in like the tech world at like AT&T, and he had a career at like IBM, all that stuff for years before. So I was really young, going to bed fairly early. Like I would see him, but he was working like long hours, so I didn't have that much time with him. And then about when I was 12 is when he his mother passed away, but then he, because of that, went complete pivot into like starting a home healthcare business. So I'm like, damn, wait a minute. Dwight has these family connections in the medical healthcare world, and my dad, but then now also my mom and sister who run that business now, like also have those connections. So I'm like, weird. It's weird. And then I'll also point out my my oldest sister is a coder. So like there's the computer science.
Really?
So are we alternate universe versions of each
At
other?
this point,
I
I'm
don't know.
convinced.
Maybe.
Yeah, there's too many
I am
similarities.
too. But it's cool.
So when are
It's
you going on
cool. And this is
Survivor?
like, but no, I don't know. I can't talk about it. Maybe I was just in Fiji. Who knows? But no, it is wild because I resonate with you so much in terms of wanting to share those stories that matter to you most. Again, I mentioned like so often, like if someone went into YouTube and searched like Matt Scott Project Drawdown, which is the organization I work for, or like Matt Scott climate change or climate storytelling or something, like all sorts of things will come up. But like a lot of that's me some of it's me is talking about my dad and sharing his story because he can't share his story anymore. But also, like, it's so important that we share why we are where we are, what motivates us to be who we are. Not only because coincidentally it is Black History Month, but also because like there's so much power in our stories. And I think also I like for people to understand that everyone has a story. Like there are people who are listening to this who probably listen to tons of podcasts, listen to tons of interviews, listen to other people talking about themselves and think like, I could never do that. I could never be that. I'm not that cool or that interesting. But let me tell you, give Dwight, give me an hour of your time and we will just dive in and ask you all the questions. And you'll be like, wow, I didn't realize I was like actually way more interesting than I am. So I love oh gosh, it's like there are a million different directions I want to go. I've like written down little pieces of different things you've mentioned, but I just need to list out all the people you've interviewed if you could do that.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, this one might be tough.
It's okay if you miss people, honestly, but before I ask you that next question, I just need to pause for a second because we have been referencing the interviews. You have mentioned different people. We talked about Usher, Madeleine Albright came up, Colin Powell, Mitch McConnell, other people. But like, could you list out the people that you have interviewed?
Pull up the big. See, I have I'm trying to remember some of the photos. I have like so many photos here that I sent to Survivor, and it's just like, it's a mess. So okay, Madeleine Albright, I see here. McConnell, Condoleeza Rice, Colin Powell. Let me see. What is
oh my gosh.
Her name? So I've interviewed a lot of interviews also were at the National Civil Rights Museum Freedom Awards. So sometimes like authors sometimes, or like not like authors or like other significant figures or media personalities who have done significant contributions towards the Black community. So sometimes their names might not be like instantly familiar, but I would say if you recognize people at all or look them up. Dorothy Bracy Alston, author of book had a kind of her name, but Dorothy Bracy Alston, someone I interviewed at Civil Rights Freedom Awards. I'm trying to remember. Oh my god, I don't remember her name. Okay, I went to some of these things I don't remember off the top of my head because I recognize them. But like I went to the Democratic National Convention when I was in 2008, so I interviewed a lot of people that were there as well.
Damn.
Ended up meeting. I didn't get to interview, but I met a few. Like Hillary Clinton, met her when she was in Memphis. McCain as well, met him when he was in Memphis. Didn't get interviews with him. Jimmy Carter got to interview him for a bit. Let's see, Survivor. Okay.
Wow.
Jimmy Carter again.
By the way, as you look through the list of names and all, I just want to comment that I could name very few people that I met at 8 years old, let alone at 20 years old even. So I'm just saying, you're doing a solid job.
I give up on her, but also I something I just when I saw one of the photos, I remember. I forgot her name and look her up, but I remember exactly the impact she had on my interviewing career was.
Wow.
So when I was doing my interviews, a lot of times when I would prepare questions, I'd write them down. And what I would stick to, and I think you do a lot better than I ever did. I had my questions prepared. And like I was like 8 or 9 or whatever, and I'd go through the questions in order, and I just stick to those. Like I run an inner stick to them, and let me find the photo. And I want to remember her name, but I do not remember her name. And I feel so bad that I do not.
No, and as you look for that,
I know she's like a famous like anchor something, but here's I forget her exact name. You know who she is? I forget her name.
Let me see. Let me like full screen this, and if people aren't watching on YouTube, they are missing out. Hold on. Let me do this. Solo layout. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Soledad O'Brien. O'Brien. There
Thank
we
you.
go.
No
problem.
Yeah, I would have cried. But I remember I was interviewing her, and like I had my cards, or whatever. She took my cards out of my hand. She took them from me and said, "Okay, let's keep going." I'm just like, "Oh," but I remembered everything I'd written down, so I kept going with the interview. And what even better, I think, and she was trying to tell me this was, instead of like with the questions I had prepared, have a question I have prepared as well, but also take the response she's giving and twist them into new questions and keep the interview evolving from there. Because what I make the mistake of before was I have questions and maybe some sub questions prepared if they said certain things, but I would like take a question and their answer and then immediately like create a new question out of thin air from that. And with her interview and then going forwards with my interviews, I would do a lot more of that. Of like, I have questions prepared, memorize the important ones, and evolve the interview from what they're saying. And like I said, you're doing that a lot better than I did when I was starting out.
I mean, no offense, but it all comes down to practice too, because that's the way that most people do interviews, and that's what people think interviews are. They think it's like prepare the questions, and sometimes they have like the cue card and they're like looking down at the questions and reading the question, and then they ask it, and then that's it. And then because I'll hear it on podcasts or on TV or wherever it might be, where people will ask the question and then someone will give a response, and then they immediately like move on to the next question without even acknowledging the response. And everything's about practice, right? Like the more that you practice, the more that you get feedback also from Soledad O'Brien and other notable award-winning journalists. Like, yes, that makes you better. But I mean, actually, that kind of leads to something I wanted to ask you about, which was like, what was your interview style and approach? Like, how long were most of the interviews? And I'm just curious if you could talk through more of like what the Dwight Moore special was.
It varied from like event to event. So a lot of the ones where I like to do one-on-one, like don't like all the secretaries of state, like Mitch McConnell, etc. Usually like 30 minutes, sit down somewhere, have a private location, go through the questions. Of course, as I got later into my career, less prepared questions, more, conversational style, evolving interviews. I'm always being sure to end that same question. What advice would you have for like a young person like me, like in the world, etc. But then a lot of these interviews that I had at the National Civil Rights Freedom Awards, so it's a bit different because it was a red carpet event. You don't have much time to go through all your questions unless it was later into the evening or people wanted to stop and talk. Like some guests, of course, would stop and talk to interviews for longer. A lot of them were there. A lot of people on the red carpet were there for like their local news affiliate, so they only have one question, they move on. I was there, with my mom. We're doing more personal interview, so it would be like I get 4 or 5 questions in. They would stay long with me. Also, nice. I was younger. They gave me the luxury benefit out of it's a kid. Let's interview him, but they also were like, "Oh, this kid's actually like not dumb." So they realize, but those it's a bit quicker, probably like 10 minutes or so. Still ending with the same question, like what advice would you give, etc. But yeah, I think the longer form ones where I reach out and email, plan it, get a location, interview there. Those are like the ones that you get better answers when it's someone not doing back to back interviews. Usually, like they have more time to think about what they're doing. They're not thinking about let's get past the person, move on to the red carpet, get into the event, and go. But that was the style. Sit down, take 30 minutes, talk about your life, talk about your motivations, talk about your career majors, milestones, like what's driven you to do those, the advice you would give, especially like depending on the person's background, what they were able to overcome. Some people, like I said, not everybody had the same obstacles getting to where they were, but everyone has their unique story. So I want to hear that story. Even people that quote unquote didn't have many obstacles, I still want to hear their story and how they got to where they were. So yeah, and then the ones on the red carpet, and also. I don't think I have many photos from those, but at the Sylvester Awards as well, they had a different event. I want to say that was before, and that was not the red carpet. It was like they usually had like a meeting room within one of the churches, and that was for the press to ask some questions, like a panel forum. But you couldn't record those because private panel. But those are like a lot of questions were there as well. I need to find the photos from that. Like I said, I got to get my mom to send me all these photos because she has them all stored somewhere. I know because I could probably text her, but like, would you have the photo from X year? So if I to send it to me immediately. I know for a fact she would do that. It's impressive. Say how quick she can find things. Like it's so impressive considering how cluttered I think. I joke and say like, oh, it's a mess. No, she has it on lock. She knows what she's doing.
No, I understand. Yeah, my mom is literally the exact same way, and I am impressed how quickly she could find things because everyone has their own system, right? Like things might seem out of order to us, but it's like they have it all figured out. So shout out to your mom.
Shout out to the moms.
There we go. Yeah, shout out to the moms. But no, this is all powerful, and it's interesting just to hear about your approach and all. I have to ask you, just to get in the salacious questions. See, I like to lead in in ways sometimes with pod friends where I'm like, let me make you nervous before going to a very simple question.
My heart rate?
But it's like, are there any interviews where you have just been like that didn't go so well, or anything that you really learned from in that sense, where it was like either off the rails or the person didn't receive the questions so well? I'm really curious because so often in the world we talk about our successes and all the things that go well, but I am so curious if anything jumps out to you in terms of like what didn't go well at an interview, or what didn't go well at one of your times.
Yeah,
I'm so
let me
curious.
make sure I am pulling up the right year because I do
Ooh,
remember.
receipts. There we go.
Yes, I want to say it
Stand
was 2011.
I feel like
That's
Barbara
right.
Walters.
So it was the Freedom Awards in
I feel like
2011. Now, none of my interviews were bad. I'm just saying I remember the one that stuck with me because I was like, oh, he kind of rushed through it. So it's in 2011, the National Civil Rights Freedom Awards. It was Bill Russell, actually. He was there getting an award, and he kind of rushed through. I remember he rushed through my interview a bit, but like it wasn't because of anything I did or anything he did. I think it was a lot of the other interviewers there, and we noticed this, weren't paying as much attention to him at the time, and he was kind of like glossing over compared to some of the other honorees. So I think he was kind of like taken aback by that. And when I interviewed him, it was like I guess a bit offended by like the entire sphere. Like he amazed, like still did a good interview, but I just remember at the time I was picked up on a slightly colder than the other people I interviewed that day. This is the same year as Usher, I want to say 2011. Yeah, same year as Usher. But I just remember it's like it was a weird like, what was that? But yeah, none of my interviews were ever bad. All of them went well. They were all super nice. That was just the one I remember. Cause I remember my mom was just like, it's odd, the behavior, like the behavior was off. But no, it wasn't a bad interview. I want to make that clear. Like he was still really good. It was just he seemed to be a bit like off on the interview itself, which valid. That's why people weren't like paying him attention. I think he deserved being at the event.
Well, yeah, and it's easy for people to have an off day, like when you're doing an interview, and it what you could do as the interviewer is try to make the best of it or try to be understanding, but that will happen at times because life happens for people, or like feelings happen for people, right? So yeah, that's what that is. But I have to ask you, I guess, while I'm in the realm of superlatives, I guess, when it comes to these interviews, like, is there a favorite interview that you've had overall, or maybe just to give you the space? I mean, you have talked about some of your interviews, but I'm especially curious if there's any interview that just jumps out to you that you haven't mentioned so far, or anything else that's been really transformative. I love this. This is so fascinating.
Yeah, the one I go to, I think, the Colin Powell story is always my one of like he was super receiving after I started the interview. But the one I remember, like Madeleine Albright, as I interviewed her, when I interviewed her, she was super nice, and for years afterwards, she would like contact me with letters, like send it to my home, like check me, make sure I'm doing fine, and I'd respond back. Like she was very personal. I tried to make sure I was still doing okay, and that was something that like I always remembered. Because like she didn't have to, like she's like a very famous figure. She has no need to continuously write letters and reach out to like some kid who interviewed her like years ago, but she continued to do that. Like ask how I'm doing, make sure I'm doing like well in school and everything. Like I guess she was like remembered or impressed by the interview, but like I always remember that of like a very kind gesture that keep reminding me like, oh, these interviews, the people do remember them. It does have an impact, so I want to keep doing these and reaching out to people, even if I think it might be a long shot to reach out and they may say no. Worst thing that happens, they do say no. Best thing that happens is they have the interview, have a good time, remember it, and I continue to reach out like that. So that's my most like memorable like interviewed person because of the contact we had for years afterwards.
Wow. Okay. Well, I like there's only one one person in the traditional write a letter sense that I've heard from that kind of jumped out to me. I know. So, spoiler alert, I know that we have you scheduled to come on the Wrestling RHAP Up in a few weeks, or like in next month, which will be exciting to have you. What is your history with pro wrestling? Just as like the short context for what I'm about to share with you.
Let's see here. I watched a lot when I was a kid.
Okay.
Stopped watching at some point, and then I remember vividly when COVID hit. I was like, literally nothing's on. Why is WWE on? I was like, okay, I'll watch it. Like they had the what was it? The weird thing with the like
Thunderdome or the suit Thunderdome.
I don't. It was like all I remember. It was like screens? It was an empty arena. It was it didn't have screens. It was an empty arena, and they were just like doing their job. Yeah. It was like, okay,
their performance
sure.
center was where they did it.
Yeah, I think Triple H was commentating for some reason. Granted, they had like no staff. I was like, okay, interesting. And then like I wasn't subscribed to it on Reddit, like the what's the subreddit? Squared Circle. I'm just trying to, so I get updates on that sometimes. I don't like watch it live anymore. I just kind of get updates. I'm like, okay, Roman Reigns still champion. Okay, great. Roman Reigns still champion. Okay, great. Whatever. So Roman Reigns is apparently doing the thing for years now. I think I don't know what his deal is.
Yeah,
he
he's
needs to lose
still,
at some point.
still champion.
I'll watch. I'll be like, oh, he has a match this month. That's crazy. He hasn't wrestled in like years apparently. And then I remember like hilarious. I remember like WrestleMania last year on Twitter. People just like, Cody lost. I'm just like, duh. Like, but I realized people were saying, oh, he was supposed to win. At times, people were like, oh, Cody was lost. I was like, he's supposed to lose. Like
that's what
Roman Reigns. Like, I caught up like, oh, he's supposed to win.
Exactly. That's what everyone thought. We'll talk more about wrestling on the Wrestling RHAP Up. Subscribe and listen to the Wrestling RHAP Up. Rob has a website.com/wrestling feed. Get the plugs in as always. But so there's a women's wrestler, Lita, also known as like Amy Dumont, who was active like 20 years ago, or that was when she first had her run, like in the early 2000s.
I know who Lita is.
And then she retired in 2006. And then like she actually has been around, but back in 2019, 5 years ago, actually, I interviewed her like in person in San Francisco as part of this film I was making. And I just kind of like kept in touch with her because she like, as context, like I remember the very first wrestling show I went to, I brought a Lita sign. I don't know if like the text on it was legible at all from where I was in the stands with my dad, but like I brought it. It was like, Lita, yes. And in my mind, like I remember seeing her and she was like, gesturing in my direction. I was like, oh, she saw my sign. I don't know if she saw my sign. She probably didn't. But like, I interview her and we just kind of stayed in touch. And she sent me like all these really nice, encouraging postcards that are on my shelf behind me that I feel like I need to like take a look at again. But it's just like wild. It's wild because like, yeah, when people really, when you're just the one asking the questions and in awe of them, and then they resonate with you or keep up with you. Like I even feel like that with pod friends and different people where they're just like, I interviewed them, and yes, they're like my podcasting colleagues and folks, but like people who have lives and are busy, and they're like, now I just want to hear all the interviews you do. I want to hear all of what you're up to. So, I don't know. It always means the world. It's like cool to hear that, and I love that. Like an hour in, we could talk so much about our lives and interviewing and the journey. But I want to ask you a question, which is like, I love your question about the advice that what advice people have for the younger generation. But I actually want to ask you, what advice do you have for your younger self? Like as you look back on your journey and as you kind of look ahead to, or look at where you are now and look ahead to where you're going, what advice do you have for your younger self, Dwight, just for the journey and navigating any of the challenges, obstacles, all the things that kind of came your way?
For my younger self, I guess the best thing is never try to fit in somewhere where like never try to fit in where you don't feel comfortable. That's something, you know, for many reasons I say that. One, being like just a black man in general in like academia. So for me, oftentimes I'm used to being the only or one of two black folks in like my quote unquote like honors or AP classes in high school. Or I get to college, I'm like the only black person in my computer science grad classes, etc. So it's like maybe someone trying to, you know, not stand out in that way. And I'm just trying, you know, fit into the crowd and not, you know, not be too noticeable, even though like I'm gonna stand out by trying to avoid standing out. Or I guess try not to be someone you're not, I guess. And even that's something I struggle with to this day sometimes. I guess, you know, now I'm so much of a nerd. I just talk about it all the time openly. But you know, like in middle school, high school, you don't want to be seen as a nerd sometimes, so you just like kind of don't talk about it. And it's just like, okay, well, I like the things I like, but I'm not going to talk about them all the time. Like, why would I? Like, why? Like, look back, it's like, why would I scared to talk about like me being a huge nerd in some ways? Because that's how you find people you get close to. And like as well, I do have like a massive interest in like sports, etc., like the whole broing out stuff, and that's my interest too. Like I'm multifaceted in my interest, and sometimes I try and cover up one when I'm with talking about another, and that's something I really was messed up with until college. I was like, I can be multifaceted and have all these interests because a lot of people have these multiple interests as well. I just always assumed you have to have one, you know, and that's something as a kid I always focus on the one interest when I'm with one group and never talk about any other interests because they only care about the one. But it's like those same people also have multiple interests, and maybe we could connect on a deeper level if we talked about the multiple things that we liked. If I talk about not being afraid to be yourself, and I say something I still mess up with, I say on Survivor I messed up with that. It's like I know who I am on like when I play any kind of game. I know the kind of person I am. I try and like be active, be like quote unquote aggressive or like etc. But on Survivor, you know, like you try and not reveal your hand too. And I think that's smart Survivor play is not to reveal your hand too early, not show who you are. Like I know I'm a smart guy, not to sound pretentious or whatever, but like I know that I've done well in school. Like I know I have some awareness, some smarts.
Right.
But on Survivor, I didn't want to show my hand at being smart and make like a big swing too early. And I think if I'd done that, maybe I still go out where I did, but I wouldn't have the regret of not doing so. It's like the one thing I guess when Neko went home, it was a 4-1 vote sending home Neko, right? My consideration at the time was pull Noel aside. We both vote for one of Jesse or Cody. It's 2-2-1, and we send one of Jesse or Cody home. And that's easy. That's a doable vote, but it's also the same time of then they know that I'm smart, so I don't want to do that. So I just want to, you know, go with the flow. And then if we have to go tribal again, we'll make it work with Noel steal the vote. But it's like, if I had done that then, I was still seen as, I didn't realize I was still seen as like the smart guy on the tribe because I still going to Stanford. I was still just like, oh, Jesse has a PhD. They don't think he's a smart guy. I'll just lay back.
Yeah.
But I didn't lean into being myself enough to where I think maybe I still would have gone where I did, but I wouldn't have had the regret of not showing everything that I was when I was out there. You know, like, and it happened at another point too. I think the Ellie vote I could have done a bit more, but those two things of like I was trying to hide some part of my personality still, trying to hide some part of who I am
Right.
as a game player. When in reality,
Mhm.
maybe swinging big is the mistake, but I still went home early anyway, so why not take that swing?
Yeah.
But
This is
like
interesting to like. Yeah. No. Go.
yeah.
Not to cut you off. Keep going.
I know that's what I was saying. Like it's like part of my like why be afraid to show parts of your personality when like
Yeah.
you might regret doing so later. Like just go out there and be yourself 100%. I was being myself, I'd say 80-90% out Survivor. Like I was still talking about being a nerd on the show, but like, strategy wise, I was trying to tone it back until like the right time. And I guess the right time never came, supposedly, because they got me, but stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's something that weighed on my mind for like weeks after filming. I was just like, should I have done the swing? Should I have taken that swing earlier? So it's just stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I
Just,
literally saw like a couple of days ago you posting about the Survivor, maybe even yesterday. Survivor.
that was
regrets
yesterday, I
being
think. Yeah,
Yes.
it's so funny. Like, yeah, I think it was yesterday, 2 days ago. But yeah, no, it's so funny because like all the like it doesn't happen like much anymore. Like maybe like once in a few weeks, I'll be like Survivor. God, no, like trauma. Like war flashbacks. But like it's funny because I'll call some of the other folks on my season quite often, or like other seasons. It's like, like, am I alone in this? And it's like, no, like we have the regret sometimes. Like it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like people still have the regrets of things they didn't do in the game. It's for different reasons. Like, is it a decision that I had control of? Is it something that didn't happen? Maybe I did something like, is it a direct thing I regret, or is it a butterfly effect thing that I regret? And for me, a lot of them, there's no real butterfly effect things that for me. Actually, I take it. There's one. It's the Gabler idol coin flip. If I got the idol game, I go home first. The winner goes home early. Like it's whatever. But like a lot of my regrets are like direct decisions of like this NECA vote. It was a direct decision of, could I have saved NECA there? If I take this big swing with the strategy stuff, I reveal my hand as like a strategist guy. But also it's like I keep NECA here, who I have a great bond with. That's the day after she did my hair. Like I'd let no one do that. Like that's something could have salvaged. It's like so many small things of like I was trying so much to cover up the strategist part of me that I was not looking into being like. And just to be honest, like I know I have a bias in this game towards like attract towards other Black folks. Because Memphis is a majority Black city. I knew my bias was I was gonna probably attract to NECA first over everybody else. And I was trying so hard to be unbiased that I lent it to like, okay, it's okay if she goes home. When in reality, maybe I should have kept her around because for me, the connection might have been stronger than anything else if I let that fester longer. So it's so many different layers of like being who you are and letting yourself be who you are out there, and not just in Survivor, but in life. Just being yourself at all times, and that is to say, like, and I think for this code switching is sometimes necessary. Like, just in general, you have to code switch in some context, but like being so much as possible. Like the world's evolving today to where you don't have to code switch as much, but it's still sometimes necessary. Like you still have to do it to like not stand out too much.
Totally,
but just trying like my younger self, like just be yourself at all times. Don't be afraid to talk about things you're interested in. Don't be afraid to, just open up to people as well. Opening up is a big thing as well as younger self. Jesus Christ, I genuinely like hate talking about myself sometimes. Now I'm a lot more open about talking about myself, how I feel, things I've done. But as a younger, it's like I don't really want to. I'll ask people about themselves because I don't want to talk about myself because I was like, who cares? Like who cares about me? Talk about you. But now it's like a lot more. I'm cool talking about myself and opening up about things. So.
This is so interesting to hear you. All this is interesting to hear you talk about from a lot of perspectives, but you're just taking me back to your season, which is another reason why I'm like, how is Dwight 23 now when he was on Survivor? Like, it feels like 5 years ago at this point.
Yeah, I was a kid when I was on Survivor. I'm a grown man now.
You were 5 years old on Survivor.
Right.
But no, it's interesting. It's interesting, young Dwight. But it's like interesting to me because there's a lot to this. I love, kind of maybe to get to this point in the interview, I love being on RHAP and part of this community. And I don't talk about Survivor all that much, but like being around people who do, or being in conversations with other fans at some of these events where we're talking about Survivor, or just even being in my own space where I'm like reflecting on Survivor. One thing I love is just like all of the learnings I feel like I have been watching about life and about how people approach things, and like recognizing our biases is important. important, and you touched on so many different aspects that are important. But one thing that I am such like a firm believer in with Survivor or any reality show, I feel like people lie so much more than they need to, because they think like, okay, I'm a cop, I'm a lawyer, like I'm not going to tell anybody. And then people really do pick up on that energy sometimes of like, I don't know, but Dwight is like kind of being cagey, or something feels off. Like some people could really read that. And spoiler alert, I have not been in this situation. So I'm speaking from a perspective of someone as a viewer and as someone who just kind of like looks to my life experience to like analyze and make sense of an edited product that is what they choose to show us. But I do think like there is something about when you just show up authentically in life where people really could feel that or pick up on that. But you know, you live and you learn. And also I just think, you know, one of my biases, I will say, in Survivor or in any game, like if someone said to me, and you know, I try to like stay away from preseason. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this on as a podcast, but I personally try to stay away from like preseason press and the like, just because I'm like, let me just watch what's given and try to enjoy the show, and just take it in and not like obsess about it too much. But you know, one of the things I sometimes think is like, I realize, and I feel weird telling you this, but I feel like I have a bias against younger players in a way, but only because I realize that like as time goes on, like they're like, I don't know if it's like a certain age where you're like when I look back on me at like 18, or when I look back on me younger, I'm like, wow, I'm so much better now. I've learned so much. You were coming in with like a loaded cannon, though, I feel like, with all the life experience and perspective you have. But I also feel like just like with time, with getting comfortable with ourselves, with getting comfortable and more in touch with our emotions, but with other people, like we're better. And so I don't know if I'm not asking you this as a question, but I will make a statement that if you ever go have the chance to do it again, like I would be thrilled to see it, just because you already have so much incredible perspective that you have to this point. But then like imagine like a 30-year-old Dwight going in and people are like, who is that? Like maybe they wouldn't recognize you because you'll have grown out like a massive beard, like maybe you'll like
beard down to here. If I go back, they call me, I was like, great, I'm growing out my hair, beard, I'm not being going by a different name, not recognizing it. It's like returning season, who's this guy? Just like, no,
I think you should go by Demo. Just Demo.
Demo. Yeah,
would be like,
they'll never see it coming.
Who's Demo? Yeah, they would never see it coming. And they'd never. By the way, another thing we have in common, I have to say, that I only really realized in looking this up beforehand, I saw that your Survivor pet peeve was people making references to The Office within 2 seconds of learning your name. And I, as a Matt Scott, have gotten Michael Scott, and people have, this has happened like most of my life at this point. So again, a more thing, could someone add that to the checkbox of like things that Dwight and Matt have in common?
We have a long list at this point. The Office, dead to me. That show, in the bin, in the rubbish.
Same.
I think I've watched like one episode by force, and it was like in a dorm. Like I watching it as a dorm community. I was like, no, this show sucks. This show, my namesake is ruined. Stop it.
It is. It was. I mean, now you know what? Maybe I should like bleep out the name of the show just to not like bring it up in people's minds at this point.
Yeah, in my head,
the number of times I've gotten Michael Scott though, and people have been like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of The Office." I'm like, please don't do that to me. Don't do that to us. Leave us alone. Come on. I know. Now we're getting to the point where it's like fighting words, and I don't know who we're gonna fight. But
I'm surprised no one on Survivor said that to me. Thank God. I would have been like, "Oh, you're going home first. Got it."
Medevac immediately. or you just like walk out. You're like, I'm done. I'm out.
Just like I swap my tribe, or I'm done now.
I would have loved it. I love a melodramatic moment. But I need to ask you, just like speaking about the community, shifting back to the community, like one of the reasons why I thought you'd be cool to have on Pod Friends, other than just like your incredible interviewing background and skills. And honestly, like I feel like the lack of, this is one of my frustrations with not even with the Survivor community, but just with interviews and the function of them is like, there's so much here that we talked about that we dove into. And I'm like, why is that not out there everywhere about Dwight? Like, why are there not like 5 to 10 hour long interviews where you're talking about this stuff? But I'm happy that we could have this conversation. But I want to ask you just about being involved in the community. I want to ask about that aspect because you are involved. You'll be on the podcasts here and there popping up. But I just want to know, like, what is it like for you, especially like post Survivor now, to be part of the community? We talked about your hesitations to like go up to people for seeming clout purposes, which, by the way, I will say as a podcaster, I also don't want it to ever seem like I'm coming to someone for clout or whatever it might be in the Survivor community. So I feel like I relate in a weird way because I'm like, this isn't about anything other than me just thinking you're a really cool human. But
Right.
I want to ask you, like, what is it like for you being part of the community, whether that's like the RHAP has a podcast community or just the Survivor community in general now? Like, what do you appreciate about it? Why do you keep showing up? No, I'm not saying you should go away, but
Oh yeah, no, I'm done now. Thanks. It's just like, yeah, why are you
oh
showing up so late?
no,
No.
there could only be
genuinely,
one.
You're right. It was so like beforehand, like I watched some of the podcasts. I mainly like just lurk. I have an account on Reddit, not active too much, just say a few things here and there. But I guess more so it's from a place of appreciation that I am even able to be a part of it, so I'm still a part of it. It's like one, I'm a fan, just like so many other people are a fan. I'm still a fan. I'm just a fan who's gotten to play. And I have a unique perspective in that, I've played the game, experienced the game. I can tell stories about what I've gone through and what it's like. Okay, not everything. I'm not gonna talk about like production secrets because they like snipe me from my house. But still talk about like what it was like, the experience in general. And I feel like some people who play that were part of the community beforehand, like in that capacity, once they play, they kind of just aren't involved. That's not who I'm the same person I was before. I just had a unique little 14-day excursion. So it's like, why not continue to be a part of it? And two, it's like, just to be very candid, once I left the show, it's like for me, like it's a level of realism. Is I went home pre-jury. I'm like, who's gonna care about me? So it's just like now that I'm post Survivor and I'm still like being invited to podcasts like this, or I'm still in the community, I'm still able to reach out to people, still be in contact. It's so much better than what I could have imagined after leaving filming. After leaving filming, I was like, oh, well, I was pre-jury, probably not going to get too much of an edit considering I have no relation to the winner. I was like, I kind of knew my edit was going to be like low-key, like because the winner of the season was Gabler. My relation to Gabler was we voted together one time and it was on the wrong vote where I went home. So it's like, it's not going to be any relation. So I kind of knew that. So it's like going into the show, I'm like, okay, hope for the best, but I expect edit. It was edit. So I was like, okay, cool. My time Survivor is done. And I, because like let's be real, most of the like the postseason interviews about game are usually like the final 3 or 4 or 5, and it's like okay, especially pre-jury. Okay, like who cares for the most part? It's genuinely like okay, pre-jury folks, who cares? Early merge folks, usually who cares? Sometimes there are exceptions to the rule, but it's like for the most part, it's move on. So it's for me to still be a part of the community because I can still I love the show, love being part of it, love the people in the community as well, love the alum I've gotten to meet, get to know, be friends with many of the alum at this point. So it's like it's not taking what I've had for granted, and I still want to be a part of it and share that experience with the community that I've been a part of for years. And I don't feel like having an opportunity that others have not had is a reason to set yourself apart. That's a reason to, like I said, give back and still be involved in the community that you've had because you are lucky enough to have an experience, have knowledge that other people have not. And mathematically, many people in the community will not be able to go and play Survivor. But I think it's rude or like weird for people who have played before to then just shut out themselves from the community once they've played. And I get some part of it is, toxicity. And I understand, once again, recognizing privilege, I realize I didn't get much toxicity from the community because realistically, with the edit I had, it wasn't like too loud or it was just kind of a quiet edit. People aren't going to really hate on me. So it's like, I still am fortunate enough to be involved in the community to capacity I am without a risk of getting like a 2 or 3 death threats because I showed my face online. So I recognize that too. Some people can't show their face in the community in the same capacity that I can, but it's like I'm not here for the whole like cloud chasing thing. I recognize I'm not posting on Instagram every few weeks for like 10,000 followers or something. I'm just here to have a good time because I enjoy the show. And that's why I want to stay involved in the community, because like it's a cool community. It has amazing people. I've met some good friends, not even alum, people that are like fans of the show. Some of them have my number. It was like, why not talk to them, you know? So it's like, it's cool. And I love this stuff. So it's a more of a, I can be part of it, so why not continue to be a part of it? You know, like I have an opportunity to continue to talk about the show and give back in that regard. So I'm just gonna stay involved as long as I can, until until I get tired.
Look, I have to say, just like I want to take this as an opportunity to show a lot of love for your season, because I had such a, for me, it's such a distinct experience as a fan compared with like a lot of the reception online at the time. And like the internet is what it is, Twitter is what it is.
Trust me,
but
I remember.
I mean, but it's wild, because like the episode you talked about where NECA was voted out, like I was at that was the night I met Owen in person, because I can't even remember, but he had like this watch party in DC, and like we knew each other to an extent through the community, through the Rob Has a Podcast community. But I remember meeting him that night, and I remember that vividly. I remember specifically this one point, and I don't know if I've ever actually talked about this with him, but like somebody else who was there was like asking him a question. He's standing next to me, and they're like asking him basically for spoilers. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. Like, shut it down. Stop. Leave him alone. It was like this whole thing, but it was like a bonding experience. But what was interesting about that season was like, I remember like meeting and spending like a little time with Carla, and like twerking on Carla at an RHAP party, and like all of these other things. DC. And like I love in DC, and I loved like the people that I met. I just wish like everyone could have had that same love and experience, but I also don't care, because you're all really dope and awesome people. And I think I
talk about my cast so much positive. Like I adore my whole cast. They're amazing people. So like,
they're amazing.
I love them to death. Like
they're amazing, but yeah, like haters
will
hate. Haters are gonna hate. It's fine.
You can't stop them,
I think like the beauty of it too is as time goes on, like I think that your season and the cast and everyone involved could only like age really well, because like at first you have those really passionate haters who just want to be loud about certain people, and again who might send death threats to certain people, but then the people who really stay around are the ones who appreciate all that you brought, and like the representation and like the stories and everything. Like I am on record on one of our podcasts on RHAP telling Carla specifically, like, oh my gosh, you're amazing, like all these different things. And now I'm on record doing this with you, reflecting on how amazing you are and just like your story. And I'm glad that we could dive deeper here, but I need we can't be here forever. We're winding down. We have to wind down. We have to. We can't be. Battery life on my mic will run out sooner or later. But no, I have to ask you a question I ask all of my interviewees, which is, if your life were a book or documentary, what would the title be and why? And I am so curious for what answer you will share, Dwight, as you think about what that title would be. It could be about your life to date. It could be about how you kind of want your life to be overall. I'm going to keep talking and vamping here and just filling space to explain the question as you think about it, to buy you some more time. That's what kind of alliance member I would be on Survivor. Talking, filling time, filibustering just to make space for you. But you look very ready to answer this question. I see you stroking your copious substantial beard hairs, and so
we're getting there. We're
one by one.
I shaved it earlier today. Okay, I shaved it a bit. I had to trim it down. Okay, it was getting kind of unruly.
Oh no,
okay?
I'm not. I can't grow any of that.
I gotta probably clean it up anyways. Like I'll clean it up. What else? Just name. I'll just go with. And purely because so many things I've done in life, it's just been like, just reaching out. Why not? Worst thing you can hear is no. Like, just shoot shots. Like, I call it taking a chance.
Ooh, I love it.
Because, like, all these interviews, it's you're reaching out to people. Most likely going to say no, but sometimes you'll get hear a yes. Applying, like I said, I went to Stanford, applied. The chance of getting in so low, but why not apply anyway? Because I'm confident who I am. Applying to Survivor, chances even lower.
Yeah.
But it's like, I know I love the show, so I'm going to apply and do what I can. It's like so many things in my life is just taking that chance, going out there, putting yourself out there, taking that risk, and sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing. And the successes you can build off those one another. So yeah, say taking a chance. It's a good name.
I love that title. It's perfect. And speaking of taking chances, because there's only a couple of other things I'm going to ask you about. I want to talk with you about President Obama. Barack Obama, in case folks aren't familiar. More Barry, if you really want to get casual about it. So I know that you I couldn't, for the life of me, for a while, I couldn't remember if you actually interviewed him or if you almost interviewed him. And then what's also wild is that with Michelle Obama, there's a story that I referenced to you earlier on the news where they, I believe in the headline, say that you met Michelle Obama. I need number one, the record to be cleared. Have you met or interviewed either of them? But also, what is it going to take for us both to interview President Obama? Like, do we have to have a message to him right now? I know that he listens to RHAP. So,
right, yeah. If the RHAP patrons can just reach out to him, that'd be great.
Yes.
But what was I going to say? I was going to say words. I forgot the words. First Lady Obama, Michelle Obama. I went to like one or two events that she was speaking at. I really got a photo with her. I was trying to find the photo. I couldn't find it real quick, but I didn't get to actually interview her. President Obama. Now let me pull up the exact reason he was in town.
That is a good question, and I'm curious why he was in town.
Yeah, so
I know it was while he was in office.
Yeah, so he was coming to Booker T. Washington High School, I want to say. Yeah, he was giving a commencement address at Booker T. Washington High School in 2011. So he was in Memphis, Tennessee. I took that day off of school, not to attend the event, but there was, after the event, there was like a few other people, local journalists in town, and myself. We were going to like meet him, and then I was going to try and interview him. While I was there, he had that all things set up and everything. He gave his commencement address at the high school, and to be clear, that he went to Booker T. Washington High School because I believe there was a contest that the school ended up winning, so the president ended up giving commencement speech there. He had to quickly fly back to the White House earlier than expected because I forget exactly what team it was, but there was one of those college sports teams that won the championship, and they were at the White House, to meet the president, and they had gone that day, so he had to fly back. I was like, y'all couldn't wait a day? We have things to do here. They could have. So rude of them. Like, put them off. But that's what happened there. I want to find the photo though, because there is a photo of this one I will sit here and attempt to find. There's a photo of me waving at him, and he's waving back when he is on Air Force One.
Oh my gosh!
Like, he is waving back at me, and I need to find this photo.
This is interesting, and I'm very curious because as you look for that photo, I will share my story of when I met President Obama back in 2012. I was at an event. I went to school here in Washington, D.C. I was at an event on the White House lawn. It was raining, and he gave some address. He walked around, and I have a video where I am like shaking President Obama's hand, but it was the worst handshake. It was like one of those where you only get like the 3 fingers in. But I just remember his hands being so soft and like and just being in awe of him, and watching back the video, which I'm keeping under lock and key, but it is somewhere on Facebook. I was literally whimpering like, President Obama, oh my gosh, President Obama. So I also, it would be a dream to interview him. I have not, but did you find the photo?
Yeah, I found the photo. So you can see this is clearly like a private airport somewhere. So just be legit. I was like, we literally had a place to go meet him and interview and everything.
Is that your hand reaching out toward him?
Yeah, my mom's taking a photo. Why is it centering? But yeah.
There we go.
Let me see if I can get this better.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
That's
there we
me,
go.
and he is like I can zoom in on him, but he is waving
Wow.
back, and he is like directly waving at me, like I
Oh
am
my
the person
gosh.
there. So like
Look.
you can see how close I literally was to like meeting him, interviewing him, and everything. But he literally had to fly back much earlier than expected. So I was like,
So what are we
Great.
doing what are we gonna do to interview him? Because
so I'll just use so now I'll dip into the cloud, be like, listen, I was on Survivor. So renowned
Yeah.
Survivor contestant Dwight Moore wants to interview you. No. Genuinely, like I haven't thought about, like I said, I thought briefly about doing the interviews again. Like I said, AOC, New York, prominent figure in what is it?
Yeah.
The exact name of their group. The new younger generation in the House of Representatives. I forget the exact name of the group, but AOC, Cory Booker, etc.
Yeah.
I want to interview some of them, but also, like I said, I had the resume from all my interviews before, so it wouldn't be like I'm not coming from nothing to reach out to interview him. So for me, it's just also just about timing and another thing of what would I want to interview him about specifically that hasn't been done before. Because like a lot of people have interviewed him, but it's like, with what purpose would I want it? I don't want to do it just for the sake of having done it. I want to have it with a purpose. So it's not just for me saying I interview President Obama. I want to interview President Obama with a specific purpose in mind, because without that, what's the point of doing it? Like without that, I'm asking the same question everyone else is asking. I want to figure out, was it that he has not shared, or was it that I think the world needs right now to hear from him that would be helpful? And once I have that in mind, once I have like that drive, that motivation, then I will start that process of going to reach out and interview him again, or reach out to him again for an interview. But for now, I can't think of anything specifically that I need to ask him that I can't just Google somewhere,
Look, I will say this, that I'm ready. Wait, hold on. Let me do this solo. Look, Barack, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm waiting. Just like call me up. You could get me. I'm easy to find. I'll go wherever you need to go. It could be any time of day. There are 24 hours in the day. You say it's 4 a.m. I will be there, Barack. You say that it's midnight. I'll show up. You say I only have 5 minutes. I'm down. I'm here. I'm ready to go. Like, we'll figure it out. It's like, don't get ready. Stay ready, Dwight. I'm ready. And you know what? If I have the opportunity, you'll be one of the first people that I let know. I have to reach out to my mom first to let her know that.
So valid. I'm okay being down on the list a bit. The family note.
Just a little, just like one person down the list, basically. Sure. My mom, and then I'll let you know, and then I'll let my siblings know and all. But no, this is the siblings crew. Amazing. Lovely. You're above the siblings in this. So I have to say, this is awesome. And I think like one thing maybe to like kind of get us to a point of wrapping up to underscore is like, that's the power of interviewing. Like, I love that I could do pod friends to talk about things that aren't all the things that we get to talk about otherwise in RHAP. Like, we get to talk about the shows we love so much and our fandom and nerding out about this stuff, which is awesome. Like, that's why we're all here in the first place, for so many reasons. 14 years into RHAP, because RHAP just had its 14th birthday. But I also just love that, like, that beauty of like going to places that the conversation hasn't gone, asking Dwight questions that maybe aren't so well documented, especially in these Survivor reality TV communities. So I don't know. I love it, but I have to give you the floor. Oh, it hurts my heart to wrap up, Dwight. It hurts my heart.
We'll just keep doing this offline as well.
Yeah,
like, we'll cut it up. Like, 4 more episodes are coming, by the way. We're gonna talk for 6 more hours. Don't worry, guys.
Honestly,
do all this.
That might be the new show. Like, I might say, like, okay, Pod Friends, new host is Dwight Moore, like new co-host. Like, we'll just go back and forth, getting all sorts of world leaders on, and some podcasters between world leaders. I think that could be a good like mix, a good combo.
World leader, they're on the same level, honestly. World leaders, like podcasters are, we're shaping the world of the podcast scene.
Yeah. Rob Sesternino is my pope, basically. So I'm just saying, I would love. I'll say,
can someone make a Pope Sesternino edit, please. It's like, I can't Photoshop someone Pope Sesternino. That's all I want. Thank you.
I'm just saying, one of them is on my list to interview for Pod Friends, and it's not the Pope. I'm just going to put it out there. So anyway, wow, look at that. Anyway, as we wrap up, Dwight, I want to give you the floor just to share any words of wisdom, any words of gratitude and appreciation with the listeners?
I guess based on, I've been talking this whole time about like going out there, putting yourself out there, but anything in life in general, even if you think it's such a low shot of it being successful, there's no point in never trying, because the worst thing that happens is you hear a no or you fail. That was going to happen anyways if you didn't attempt that thing in the first place, or you didn't ask that person the question in the first place. So like everything I've been able to do so far in my life has been taking that chance and reaching out there, putting myself out there, even if I'm scared of failing, even if I'm scared of whatever reception I'm going to get from people, even if I think it's embarrassing, I still did it. And that's what's allowed me to have something I've gotten, and that's why I've been able to fail sometimes and learn from those failures and tournament successes later. So it'd be remiss of me to not push people to take that step and take that initiative in anything in life after this interview I just had, because that's kind of been the motivation behind everything I've done. So yeah, always put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to do it. And that goes for anything in life. Yeah, people out here, if you know, a lot of y'all are Survivor fans or reality TV fans, if you're thinking about applying for a show, just do it. Just apply. Make a video on your couch. Like, I know people say all the time, like, make a video in like a few minutes. I did my video in a zip car after I went shopping. Like, genuinely, I was just like, screw it. I just made a video. Like, I'm sitting in a dark car like 8 p.m. at night, just
hopefully well parked.
Yeah, of course I was parked. Oh my god, yes, I was running the zip car timer down, but I was like, I need to get this done. Like, I couldn't do it in my room because I had a roommate, so I was like, I need to do this privately. So zip car was the best option I had.
Wait, sorry. Side note: as you wrap this up, did you rent the zip car just so you had a place to record your?
No. I went shopping and then at the end of it did the recording. I wasn't gonna waste money just for like a room. I would just go multitasking. Like, I could have probably used like an actual room in the building. But someone walked in, they're like, "What's that about?" I'd be like, "Oh, don't worry about it." Like, what am I gonna say? Like, Survivor? No. Like, to be fair, I probably could have, because like, you're not gonna like find the person I told in my dorm room about Survivor and cite me and say like, you can't go on the show. But I didn't know that. CBS could be anywhere. Okay, so I got a zip car. Anyways, me rambling again. Sorry, viewers. But yeah, basically take a shot at anything. Go for it. Worst thing happens, say no. But yeah, thank you all for listening so much. Thank you for inviting me so much. Because like you invited me to this, I was so happy to say yes, because I've been so busy this week. It's so nice to just talk about just to talk, and like, you've asked amazing questions. You're such a good interviewer. You're such a good host. I really appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode with Dwight. And what a special, really meta conversation with Dwight about interviewing. I didn't even know he interviewed all the amazing people he interviewed. I didn't even know all those twists and turns in his life and in his story. And yet, that's what this is all about. And that's why I love interviewing people. And that's why, even beyond Pod Friends, you could follow me on social media at MattScottGW to see the rest of my interviewing journey. If you want to see me interviewing folks in my day-to-day job, well, check out the series Drawdown's Neighborhood, a climate change solution short documentary series passing the mic to voices that often go unheard, primarily from Black and Brown communities, about their stories, about who they are. And I'm so proud of the representation that we could bring into those spaces through that series. I'm so proud to be the creator and host of that, and you could check that out at drawdown.org/neighborhood. Again, follow me on social media, MattScottGW, at HeyPodFriends. There's so much more I could say, but I just want to thank you and just say that I appreciate you. I can't wait to be in touch with all of you again. And more than anything, I want to thank you for being a pod friend.